Have you ever been reading a book and you've been so amazed or surprised that in the book has been reference to another character or a thing that's happened in another book that you've read, and it gets you really, really excited? Or maybe you've watched a movie and you've noticed that a character from another series has actually made a cross into your favourite film or your favourite series and brings so much excitement to it. This is called intertextuality, and it's what we're going to be focusing on today. It's one of the textual concepts that's taught across primary school. Intertextuality is where one text borrows an idea, a concept, character or a setting from another text. What's good to keep in mind is that there are various levels of intertextuality. Sometimes there's direct references. Maybe it could be a series of books that are referencing one another because they're in a series. Maybe there could be some afterthoughts of referencing, kind of like, I don't know if you've seen that movie Aliens, and you've also seen another movie called Predator. Well, they've put them in the same universe. And I think they've also hinted that Blade Runner is in that same universe as well. Some definite intertextuality happening there. But there's varying degrees of levels. Whether the authors are aware of the intertextuality and it's a purposeful, noted reference, maybe it's a bit more subtle and they're not actually being overt with the reference, but they're just making the reference anyway. Once again, sometimes there could be a subconscious level where the reference is made unintentionally. Something really cool to note, there's an idea out there called the Great Conversation. And this is the idea that no matter how hard you try, you can't really come up with anything totally new, because one thing will always represent another thing. So the idea here is that each text actually borrows an idea from the one or the type of text that has come before it, going right back to the early books that have been written. This gives one the idea of the foundation of Western thought in the great classics of our culture, in the heritage that we have inherited. Somebody can start back with the great works from the Greeks, the Hebrews, the Romans, and work right through the ages, becoming familiar with these great works. In doing so, you'll be able to trace your ideas and your worldview all the way back to its roots. Very important in terms of critical thinking. Okay, now what to expect from your child throughout the different stages of their learning. In the ages between 5 and 6, they should be hearing the same story told in a different way, read by a different storyteller. They could see the same story in a different book with different words, and they should realise that it's actually the same story, just told in a different way. In ages 6 to 8, kids should start to see that some texts are actually related to others, maybe because they're in a saga or a series. Maybe they're written about the same age by the same author and they're connected through some way, shape or form. Okay, ages 8 to 10, children should start to see that when one text borrows from another, it actually enhances its meaning. It gives it a depth and a background. You can also see that older texts can be updated for a newer audience, making itself more appropriate and more functional for the time and audience that it's written for. In ages 10 to 12, students should see that intertextuality isn't only unique to books, but can also be on film, ads, websites, and many other forms of media. We can see that when it's changed or when it's reinvented, it can become a whole new text. So when you're borrowing something from something else, how much of that do you want to borrow? Maybe you want to borrow half of it and then flip the story upside down to create something totally new and unique. Lots of fairy tales have been retold again in a sort of bleak sort of fashion with the Grimm brothers. Really interesting to read. In ages 12 to 14, children should start to see that intertextuality actually adds depth and more meaning to the original text. The retelling of the story can actually generate a unique insight into the story. Sometimes it's called Easter eggs, where some Easter eggs may be placed throughout film or even a game, where some scenes are redepicted in a movie or made reference to in a game of some sort. Students should also be given the opportunity to retell their favourite story or text, and this will generate new insights for their mind, helping them to engage with texts in new and creative ways. In between the ages 14 and 16, students should start to see that there is absolutely nothing new under the sun. That all texts, all films, all series have actually been borrowed from here or there, and that intertextuality occurs over and over again, whether it's on a subconscious level or on a clearly conscious level. it'll always happen again and again. They should see that there are variations made to text to suit new audiences or to suit a new era. Ages between 16 and 18, students should start to see that there is a great conversation where all texts actually are a reference in one way or another to a text that has come before it. Whether it has been an influence that the author has had when they were writing the text, or maybe it was something that they've had previously, or their own ideas that they've gathered from maybe a religious background or cultural background. It's all come from one source. Whether the references have been explicit or sort of hidden away, it always adds pleasure to reading a book or viewing your favourite film, seeing where the creation has got its inspiration from. And finally, intertextuality also makes a statement on value on the books or films or series that it's referencing. Thanks so much for tuning in today on Education 2020. I hope you enjoyed learning more about the textual concept of intertextuality. Hey, it's not that hard. If you have any questions on intertextuality, please leave us a line in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time on Education 2020.